Hello everyone, and welcome to Bear in Mind's Bear Hug. Please, apologies for the voice and the lateness of this video after WrestleMania. I've been on holiday. Just went north of the border to Scotland. I might put a little video of that on the channel as well, so you might get to see some of the absolutely stunning sights of where I've just been, and it was beautiful. But my voice is a little worse for wear after a good holiday and a bit of a cold. So just bear with me. This video is going to be the first event that I watched of WrestleMania weekend, and that is NXT Stand and Deliver. I didn't do predictions for this because to be honest, I haven't been watching enough NXT to really do a predictions. However, what I did watch, obviously going into this, WWE are very good with their packages of knowing what's coming and how to tell the casual fans, including myself, a little bit of the backstory. So I wasn't too worried about that. This, obviously, in theory, one of their bigger events of the year, as it's tied to WrestleMania weekend. It's in the same arena as SmackDown and Raw, being held that weekend, and the Hall of Fame. So, nice big arena. They seem to get a decent number of people in there. I don't know if they sold it out, but it was a good number anyway. So, great for them, especially as NXT 2.0 is very much back to being the development division rather than it being a third, albeit smaller brand, as it had sort of evolved into at one point. Okay, so we'll kick off as they did with the women's title ladder match, multi-person match. Not usually a big fan of these matches, in all honesty. I like a good one-on-one ladder match, tag ladder match, maybe a triple threat. I think once it gets to multiple people, it's quite often a bit of a spot fest, which is great on certain shows. I think that WrestleMania, when it's on a WrestleMania match, when it used to be for the IC title, or when when Money in the Bank was a WrestleMania match, it was fine because it sort of got a lot done in a short period of time. Go back and look at the tag team title match where the Hardys returned. That was only, I think, 12 minutes long, but a hell of a lot of action. So they can do a good job. They don't always do a good job. Sometimes there's silly stunts and what have you. But this was a good one. I rather enjoyed it, actually. The story going into it was a bit of an odd one. Obviously, potentially Roxanne Perez is coming up in the upcoming drafts, which Triple H announced on SmackDown last week or the week before. Last week, sorry. And she's gone through the Shawn Michaels concussion, not passing out in the middle of the ring, coming back to reclaim a title story. But they've done it in the space of a few weeks, and she didn't even lose the title. They never actually officially stripped her of it. So she went in as the defending champ, and I think it would have had a little bit more effect in the long run, unless she is going up very, very soon, for her to have not been in it. And I think it sort of does her a disservice a little bit. It sort of does the others a little disservice. Because she could have come back and then they've done the big payoff rather than this. I don't know entirely where they're going with this. The other competitors, we've got Indy Hartwell, Gigi Dolan, Zoe Stark, Lyra Valkyrie, and Tiffany Stratton. Some familiar faces there for myself. I'm not as familiar with Tiffany Stratton, although I've seen some of the highlight vids on YouTube and Twitter and the likes. Very impressive, very athletic. There's certainly that element of a Ricochet-esque person there. It's got a lot of acrobatic potential, and I think obviously the fact that they're in NXT means that hopefully they'll be taught when and why to use these moves as opposed to just throwing them out there, which again I'm not a big fan of. I think when they're used in the right moment, that's the key, and they can be quite special at that time. Obviously going into this, Gigi Dolan's had the story with her former tag team partner, so there was always that lying over whether JC Jane was going to appear and do any shenanigans, and of course she did, coming in right at the end to cause Gigi Dolan the chance to win the title. Gigi standing high atop, ready to get that belt, only for JC Jane to come and stop her. So good bit of storytelling there. I'm enjoying that. The eventual winner, Indy Hartwell, first title that she's held in NXT. She's not held the tag team title. She's not held this. Obviously part of the faction at one point with the Garganos, and they came out afterwards after she won. And of course the return of her on-screen husband to help her get all the way to the top of the ladder, which got a nice big pop. A deserving victory, a surprisingly good match. Again, not because of the competitors, but because of the type of match. I'm not a big fan of multi-person ladder matches. So yeah, very good. Good way to kick off the event. Next, we have the NXT Tag Team Championship. So we got Gallus defending against the Creed brothers, Tony D'Angelo and Stax, in a triple threat match. If anything, this was a bit more, this had a few more spots in certain cases. Not necessarily big high spots, but the getting the move train going and things like that. I thought this was a great triple threat match. Started a bit weird, like, because it's strange having three members of tag teams in the middle, and this not just being a full-on tornado tag. I did wonder how you keep that balance, because we don't see many triple threat tag team matches. It's usually 2-on-2, or it'll be a 4-team or 5-team or however many teams, or of course just a big old free-for-all. So seeing the balance of a triple threat match, it was great. Really, really well done, this one. The Creed brothers are absolute animals. If WWE are going to really, really bolster that tag team division on the main roster once the whole Bloodline story's over, really go for a proper tag team division, then there's some great tag teams coming up. Obviously, the three mentioned here, but Pretty Deadly, who were the hosts of Stand and Deliver, what a great tag team they are as well. Really good characters, great gimmick. They're really going to do well. Tony D'Angelo and Stax. I haven't seen a lot of Tony D'Angelo in a while, and Stax, obviously, his protege of sorts. Stax was amazing. As a relatively young guy who I've not seen before, really, really good. Good first impression. Obviously, Gallus are fantastic. Love Gallus anyway. And they retained. Overall, a cracking match. Really enjoyed it. Next, we have the North American Championship. Another multi-person match, this. They really were trying to get as many people on the card as possible. Again, a few more spots in this one, as you'd expect, given the people that were in it. So we've got the champion, Wes Lee, defending against Dragon Lee in his debut match, I assume, in NXT after they've signed him. Obviously a big name in Mexico, so some high hopes from many for Dragon Lee. We've got JD McDonough Ilya Dragunov and Axiom, former A-Kid from the NXT UK. Dragunov, it's funny because in NXT UK, obviously, he did so much work with Walter that you think of him as relatively small physically. And now in this match, he was easily the largest man in the match. He was, if anything, the powerhouse in this match. And but he served that role well. And typical Ilya Dragunov fashion, absolute monster, absolute beast. Somehow managed to draw blood, probably just by staring angrily at someone. It didn't seem that there was any particular reason for it. He must just have paper-thin forehead. But yeah, cracking match. Actually, probably the best I've seen of Wesley, in all honesty. I think he's really, really coming along quite nicely. Not necessarily before coming to NXT or even in his early days of NXT, a singles wrestler as well. So this must still be a touch weird being one of the guys with the second most significant male title in NXT anyway currently. Everyone had a good showing. I don't think anyone looked weak here. As I say, I think Wesley, obviously he defended, managed to retain the title, but he came out looking really strong, probably the best I've seen him. So yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Where to next? The unsanctioned match between Johnny Gargano and Grayson Waller. Again, not seen too much of the build-up of this, so I relied mostly on what I'd seen online and the video package, which was a very good video package as ever. Grayson Waller's an absolute star. He's an absolute star. The guy's got a decent look. He's obviously a good wrestler. He's incredible on the mic. He does everything realistically that MJF does in AEW, but without any swearing and with fewer iffy subjects, I would say. So I've got great hope for him in the future. I didn't know whether he would win or lose. I think it probably made sense for him to lose, in the sense that obviously Gargano is the hero of NXT. Gargano is already on the main roster as well. And Gargano, because of a couple of niggling injuries, hasn't necessarily done that well on the main roster. So I think it would have done him more harm than good if he'd come down and lost to Waller, unless Waller was meant to be staying down there and becoming a legitimate threat for a future world title match again. And to stay in the bad books of Shawn Michaels. Of course, unless Shawn Michaels came out and turned on Gargano, that would have been an interesting little switch. Didn't go that way, just ended up a good, strong, difficult match. Typical Gargano, which if you like that, you like it. If you don't, you don't. I can see sort of both ways with a long Gargano match. But I enjoyed it. I think it was a good match. I have a feeling Waller's going up in the coming oh God, what is it? Draft. There we go. It's because you don't do it in British sports, so the word occasionally just slips out of my mind, at least in this context. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the ones going up in the coming draft. Obviously, we then see the extended Gargano family at the end of the match as well. Next, we have the women's tag team title match. This was a great match. This was really good. Kiana James and Fallon Henley going in as tag team champions, possibly surprise tag team champions after the previous NXT Premium Live event from Royal Rumble weekend. I think. No, it was Elimination Chamber weekend, wasn't it? Yes. And good Lord, they're good. And I know they're playing that like slightly love-hate relationship between the two of them. They don't get along because they sort of accidentally ended up together. They've got different, mainly through the brothers that they're associated with. But my word, what a wonderful tag team division the women's tag team division in NXT is at the moment. Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, no surprise really that they work well together, having worked either together or against each other, and therefore essentially together for quite some time on the independents and NXT UK. They gel really well. Another fantastic tag team. Obviously, they came out on top. Without going into too many details, to be honest, I can't really fault this match. It was great. I think it almost stole my match of the night, in all honesty. In fact, yeah, it was my match of the night. Wonderful. Want more of this on the main roster. Obviously, the previous champions, not Kiana James and Fallon Henry, but I can't remember their names, and I apologise. I imagine they're going up in the draft as well. Actually, I know they got a bit of love on Twitter this week because of a really sweet double team move that they did on NXT. So I don't know whether they're going to be back in the title hunt or whether they're just going to quietly make their way to the main roster. I'd prefer excuse me. I'd prefer them to go to the main roster, in all honesty, and flesh out that main roster women's tag team division. And finally, on to the main event, the well-documented, well-looked-forward to, massively hyped Carmelo Hayes versus Bron Breakker NXT NXT Championship match. It was a good match. If anything, I was slightly underwhelmed. I feel like a lot of people possibly were as well. The two big names of NXT since the relaunch have been on a collision course for this entire time. Obviously, Bron Breakker has been on and off champion for the 2 years since the relaunch, or is it in 3 now? And Carmelo Hayes has been slowly climbing up, but being the guy, or him, as he's referred to. I think there was something slightly missing here. And I know that since then, obviously on NXT TV, Bron, they seem to have tried to do the double turn here and have Carmelo Hayes become the face, and Bron Breakker have a little time as the heel. Maybe they think he needs a bit more time fleshing out his character before he goes up to the main roster, which I don't have a problem with, in all honesty. He is a really extreme rookie. I think he'd only had 8 matches before he won the NXT title, and they were all behind closed doors. So I think, or most of them were behind closed doors. I think he's definitely someone they want to build for the future. And so I don't know if with them knowing that, whether they needed to hold something back from this match to make people hungry for the next match, and so on and so on. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was good, if not very good, but I think there were many people who were expecting this possibly to steal the weekend, and I don't think it even, I definitely don't think it was the best match of the night, in all honesty. I think that still goes to the NXT Women's Tag Team title match. On the whole, though, a very solid NXT Premium Live event. Sort of where they need to be, I would say, and definitely a hope for the future. I still think there's, once NXT launches its other international brands again, once NXT Europe as opposed to NXT UK is launched, when they finally get NXT Japan or even East Asia. I think East Asia is probably a smarter bet than trying to plonk it straight in Japan, to be honest, now that they failed to buy Noah last year and what have you. I think there's too much competition in Japan. But I think maybe basing it in South Korea, there's a decent burgeoning professional wrestling scene in South Korea. I think you could do something really quite well there. Obviously, I think, as I say, when all these international brands start to crop up again, I think NXT, the main NXT, could and should be a legitimate third brand again. I think it should be treated a bit like different football tiers are in other countries other than the States, where, like, for England, as an example, you've got the Premier League, you've got the Championship, which is the division down, and so on and so on. I think NXT, the main NXT, should be treated like the Championship. So you've got somewhere where it's for people on the way up and just about in the big time, and maybe people who need a little refresh, or even people on the way down, some of the veterans that aren't quite ready to give up and maybe aren't big enough names to have that big banger going out parade on the main rosters. I think that's the future of NXT, hopefully. But until then, a very good stand and deliver. Very much enjoyed it, and I'll see you for the next video, which should be WrestleMania Night 1.